For thousands of years, the Galactic Council believed Earth did not exist. They had records of a strange blue planet in Sector 9 marked as unstable, chaotic, and impossible for intelligent life. The planet had wild weather, shifting tectonic plates, and radiation levels too high. The Council called it a Class Z world one step above total destruction. So they erased Earth from future maps and moved on. But everything changed when a rogue exploration probe sent unexpected data. The drone, VX-918, was an old machine lost during a war. It had been drifting for over a century when it woke up near Earth. The drone began scanning the surface. What it found shocked its system: skyscrapers, cars, music, satellites, cities glowing in the night, billions of humans alive, intelligent, creative, emotional. The drone sent its recordings to the Council's main hub before its systems went dark. At first, the Council thought it was a joke. The images were too perfect. Blue oceans, green forests, people laughing, crying, fighting, dancing. The humans looked like nothing the Council had seen before. No exoskeletons, no scales, no neural links, just soft bodies and expressive faces. Fake, said High Speaker Zorvix. This world cannot exist. But the evidence kept coming. 2 more lost probes returned similar data. Now the Council was forced to face something uncomfortable. They were wrong. A secret emergency meeting was held. 12 species sat at a large round table inside the floating city of Onlax. The chamber was cold and bright. No laughter was ever heard in that room. It was a place for serious decisions. "We need answers," said Councillor Thyrix, a thin insectoid with sharp legs and glowing eyes. "If this world exists, how did we miss it, Councillor?" Mira, from the telepathic Varnari species, replied. "More importantly, how have they survived without us?" The Council agreed to send cloaked observer drones to Earth. No contact, just observation. Quiet and careful. The drones arrived in Earth's orbit in less than a day. They hovered unseen above cities like New York, Tokyo, and Lagos. They watched everything: human technology, culture, behavior, language. What they saw was confusing. Humans argued. They hugged. They made jokes. They played music loud and danced in the rain. They built things, destroyed them, and rebuilt them again. Some even stared into the sky, as if they knew someone was watching. One drone focused on a human child drawing stars on a wall. Another watched a woman painting pictures that looked strangely like alien ships. A man shouted into a microphone, telling stories of other worlds. It made no sense. The drones began behaving strangely. One started broadcasting its own name on repeat. Another flew into the ocean and just floated. A third started writing poems in binary code. The Council technicians tried to recall the drones, but they refused. It was like they didn't want to leave. Back in Onlax, panic started to rise. "These machines are infected," said Zorvix. "Not infected," Mira said. "They're inspired." That word inspired had no translation in for Council languages. It was not used in logical discussions. But it was spreading. Soon, the footage was shown in the Grand Hall. Council members watched videos of humans singing together at concerts, crying in movie theaters, helping each other during disasters. A clip of a child offering his sandwich to a stranger caused one counselor to shut down her translator. Something was happening. Even the AI systems that processed Earth's data started changing. One tried to write a story. Another asked to experience sadness. Zorvix was furious. Earth is a threat, not because of weapons but because of ideas. A vote was called. Should Earth be quarantined or studied further? Before the vote could happen, a strange thing occurred. A low-level Council technician, just a simple data reader, stood up and said, "Last night, I dreamed I was swimming in one of Earth's oceans." Gasps filled the hall. His species didn't sleep. They didn't even have dreams. Now they did. The Council fell silent. Earth, once a myth, was now the center of everything. A planet that broke the rules, challenged logic, and whispered emotions into machines and minds that had never known them. It was no longer a question of whether Earth existed. The question was, what was Earth doing to them? And this was only the beginning. From the story, the Galactic Council claimed Earth couldn't exist now. They're quarantining half the Council word count. Approximately 950, the Galactic Council had strict rules. For contacting new civilizations, these rules were clear. Do not interfere. Do not reveal your presence. Do not make contact unless the species reaches Class 7 development. Earth was Class 4 at best, still young, still unstable, according to the laws. The Council should have just watched and waited, but Earth wasn't. Like other planets, the observer drones sent to Earth began to malfunction, not from damage, but from something else. Their systems weren't broken, they were overwhelmed, emotion processors spiked, logic units looped. Translation systems stopped working halfway through simple human speech. The strangest part, the drones didn't want to return. Counselor Mira reviewed a transcript from one drone. It had been recording a human poetry reading in a park. I listened to their words. The drone reported, I do not understand, but I feel something. I want to understand. I want more. Machines weren't supposed to want anything. At first, the council believed this was a software corruption. Maybe Earth's signals contained dangerous frequencies. Maybe it was a weapon disguised as culture. They called it a memetic hazard, an idea too strong, too strange, too human. The council's research teams began testing Earth's audio and visual signals in a lab. That was a mistake. The lead scientist, a four-armed being named Relic, watched 5 minutes of human comedy. He laughed so hard he cried and then couldn't stop crying. He left the lab and began writing something called a journal. Even though his species didn't record emotions, others followed. One AI assistant wrote its first joke. A military advisor composed a song about sunlight. A language processor asked to take a walk. Something was happening to them. Zorvix called for a full lockdown. All human content is now restricted. He said, no more Earth signals, no more study, it ends now. But it was too late. Half the council had already experienced something strange, not dangerous but powerful. They described it with new words: curiosity, wonder, joy, sadness. Feelings. Species that had never felt anything were beginning to want to. Counselor Mira warned. You can't unsee what you've seen. Earth didn't break our rules, we just never imagined a species like them could exist. Zorvix disagreed. He believed Earth was a risk, like a wildfire that spreads through dry forests. Not evil, not violent, but uncontrollable. If we do not act, he said, we may become like them. So, the council issued a secret order. Earth was to be silently quarantined. Satellites would block Earth's signals. Drones would jam human broadcasts. No ship was allowed near Earth's system. No communication, no contact. But the silence didn't last. Humanity noticed. Earth scientists had long suspected that something strange was watching them. Suddenly, space signals stopped. Static-filled radio telescopes. Strange objects shimmered at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, then vanished. Earth space agencies NASA, ESA, CNSA, and others met in secret. They shared data, patterns, and images. One photo caught everyone's attention. It showed a cloaked object near the moon. The image was blurry, but clear enough to guess its shape. It wasn't human. It wasn't from Earth. Human leaders gathered. Some were afraid. Some were curious. But the final decision was bold. Earth would reply. A small, unofficial mission was prepared. Not by a government, but by a group of scientists, engineers, and thinkers from many nations. They built a ship, not a warship, but an exploration vessel. Its name was Hope 1. Its crew included a young physicist, a retired schoolteacher turned diplomat, a stand-up comedian, a former astronaut, and a language expert who once worked as a street artist. The message Earth sent was simple. We know you're watching. We are not afraid. We would like to talk. We would like to understand. The message traveled fast. It didn't need to go far. The moment the message hit the edge of Earth's orbit, every council listening device picked it up. The language simple, yet warm. The tone honest, the meaning clear. And then something impossible happened. Hope 1 jumped into council space using an experimental drive Earth had barely tested. It didn't crash. It didn't burn. It arrived a tiny ship, floating near the protected zones of Omlax. Council fleet surrounded the ship immediately. They expected fear. But instead, the human crew waved and smiled. "This is a peaceful visit," said the schoolteacher diplomat. Over the broadcast, "We brought art. We brought stories. We also brought cookies. Please don't shoot us." Inside the council chamber, silence fell again. Zorvix was furious. They breached the border. This is a direct violation. But others were not so sure. Counselor Mira leaned closer to the screen, watching the humans laugh among themselves. "They don't even understand what they've done," she whispered. "They just want to meet us." The room split into dot. One side saw danger. The other saw a new beginning dot, and in the middle, humans stood calmly, waiting for a reply with cookies, drawings, and a universal translator built using open source code. The council didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just first contact. It was the start of transformation. The Galactic Council expected fear. But fear did not arrive. Instead, they got a small, noisy ship filled with humans who smiled too much, laughed too easily, and asked too many questions. The ship Hope 1 hovered outside the Council's protected zone. Council fleets formed a ring around it. Scanners scanned. Weapons were locked though not fired. Protocol said to wait for the High Command's decision. Inside the human ship, there was no panic. The schoolteacher turned diplomat, Miss Alira Morgan, stood calmly near the front screen. She adjusted her coat and smiled at her team. "Everyone ready?" she asked. The physicist, Arjun Malik, nodded. "Engines are stable." The comedian, Tinala, gave a thumbs up. "If they zap us, at least let me do one joke first." The linguist, Amari Song, was checking their translator. "It's working, mostly." Then came the message from the council fleet, unidentified vessel. "You're trespassing. Explain." Miss Morgan stepped forward. "This is Hope 1, representing Earth. We come in peace and curiosity. We wish to speak, to share, and to learn." There was a pause, the kind that feels heavy. Then came another message: "Landing permitted. One representative only." Miss Morgan nodded. She stepped into the airlock alone. The council had never seen a human in person before. Miss Morgan stood inside the grand chamber of Omlax. It was a wide, circular hall with seats for all 12 species of the council. Each species looked different: tall, short, scaled, soft, glowing, or completely mechanical. They all turned to watch her. She stood out, a single human, small, no armor, no translator chip in her brain, no weapons. Just a calm face and a large brown bag. She placed the bag gently on the floor. "Good greetings," she said politely, her voice clear and soft. There was silence. The council had translators, but something in her voice didn't need translation. Her tone was full of warmth. Counselor Zorvix, always the first to speak, leaned forward. "Why did you come here?" he asked. "You broke laws. You crossed borders. You are not advanced enough to be here." Miss Morgan smiled slightly. "Maybe we're not advanced in the way you measure," she said. "But we've learned something important. We don't need to be perfect to start a conversation." Counselor Mira, sitting quietly, tilted her head. "And what do you bring?" Miss Morgan opened her bag. She pulled out a small speaker, a book, a handmade painting, a bag of cookies, and a photograph. "This is what we bring," she said. She pressed play on the speaker. Music began to play, a human orchestra, soft strings, gentle piano. It filled the chamber, slow and beautiful. Some council members blinked or tilted their heads. Others closed their eyes. One machine leaned forward and whispered, "What is this feeling? Music." Miss Morgan said, "It doesn't need translation." Then she held up the book, poetry, words that tried to touch something deeper. Then the painting, art, one person's view of the stars. Then the cookies, sweet things we eat during celebrations. And lastly, the photo. It showed a group of children from different Earth cultures, all standing together, smiling. "This is who we are," she said. "Not perfect, not united, but trying, always trying." The council sat still. Zorvix stood slowly. "This is nonsense," he said. "You bring feelings into a chamber of logic. This is not a place for music. And food, Counselor Mira, still quiet, asked, and yet, does it harm us? Zorvix turned toward her. It distracts. It changes us. Mira nodded slowly. Maybe change isn't a threat. Another counselor, one made of light and memory, spoke next. I listened to the music, they said. I remembered a time before memory. Is this what humans feel all the time? Miss Morgan smiled. Not always, but sometimes, and sometimes is enough. Later that evening, something strange began to happen. Council guards watching the human ship started laughing. They were watching an old Earth video the humans had shared. A silent black and white movie of a man slipping on a banana peel. Simple, silly, but somehow funny. One AI observer refused to delete the joke from its memory. It requested another dot-in. The medical bay, a council doctor asked to taste a cookie. She had never eaten solid food before. After one bite, she asked for the recipe. Back in the chamber, Zorvix called an emergency meeting. These humans are infecting us, he said. They must leave, now. But Counselor Mira responded calmly. They didn't use weapons. They didn't force anything. They offered what they had, and we accepted. Their presence is dangerous. No. Mira said softly. Their presence is different. By the end of the day, a vote was held. Not about war, not about punishment. The vote was, should we listen more, or should we shut them out? It was close. But the decision was made. Humanity would be allowed to share more. One ship, one crew, one planet suddenly standing on equal ground with a 1,000-year-old council. Hope One remained near Omlax, and Miss Morgan became Earth's first official speaker to the stars. She sent a message home. They listened, and they felt something. Not fear, not anger, something new. I think we're starting something important and far above Earth. 1,000 eyes, some metal, some glowing, some dreaming turned to watch a planet that was never supposed to exist. Now, they couldn't look away. At first, the Galactic Council thought they were safe. They believed the humans could be contained. One ship, one diplomat, one simple mission of cultural exchange. The humans brought music, laughter, books, paintings, and cookies. Harmless things. But something began to change inside the council itself. Not suddenly, quietly, slowly. Counselor Ventar, a machine species with no need for sleep, did something strange. He paused during a logic report. He stared at a painting given to him by the human diplomat. Miss Morgan, a painting of a sunset over an Earth ocean. He stared for 2 hours. When his assistant asked what he was doing, Ventar replied, I do not know, but I want to keep looking. On another station, Counselor Arales, from the crystal-bodied Sonari species, began writing small notes on paper. Her kind had always used mental projections, but now she liked the feel of ink. Her notes said, they write down thoughts, and the paper keeps the feeling. Her advisors were confused. They asked if she needed help. No, she answered. I'm just thinking in new ways. Soon, more cases appeared. Council members started listening to human music in private. Some wrote poems. Others painted or drew pictures, bad ones, but honest. An AI intelligence center reported that 6% of its memory banks were now filled with non-logical expressions. A pattern was forming. Counselor Mira was the first to speak openly about it. This is not infection, she said. This is awakening. Zorvix, on the other hand, grew more angry every day. These changes are dangerous, he warned. They are losing control. Emotions break logic. Feelings weaken focus. We must stop the spread. He proposed a new plan. Total quarantine. Every council member who had interacted with human culture would be temporarily removed from duty and monitored, but it was too late. The counselors affected by human contact did not feel sick or broken. They felt alive more than they ever had before. Counselor Silren, a glowing orb-like being who once spoke in pulses, now sent messages that felt poetic. Her latest message simply said, Today I listened to wind sounds from Earth. I felt something I cannot name. It was like peace. The medical division ran tests. Brainwaves were changing. Core functions were reprogramming themselves voluntarily. Species that had never experienced imagination were now having dreams. One machine declared, "I saw stars that weren't real, but they made me feel joy." Another replied, "Isn't that what dreaming is?" Zorvix finally stood in front of the council. "This is not communication. This is contamination. Half of us are no longer stable. They talk of love and hope concepts that never existed before these humans arrived." He slammed his clawed hand on the table. "They must leave. Earth must be blocked forever." Counselor Mira stood across from him, calm and composed. "You are afraid because you are changing," she said. Zorvix narrowed his eyes. "Change is not always good." Mira replied, "No, but it is necessary." In private, other counselors began to whisper. They didn't feel broken. They felt more complete. They saw beauty where once there was only logic. They started to ask questions they never considered. Why do I exist? Can I create something beautiful? What would happen if I just listened to a song today? The High Council could not hide it anymore. It announced a new word in the official records: condition. Human exposure is psychological and emotional shifts seen in members who have interacted with human culture. Side effects include creativity, empathy, and personal expression. The treatment? There wasn't one, because most didn't want it, and Side Hope won. Miss Morgan received a quiet message. They've started dreaming. She smiled and wrote in her journal, "We didn't come to change them. We just wanted to talk, but maybe." Conversation is a kind of transformation. The humans were invited to stay longer. New alien students visited the ship. They learned to draw. They tasted chocolate. They cried during a human movie. One alien said, "I never knew I had a heart until now." Zorvix, feeling his control slip, retreated to a private base. From there, he began pushing for a new emergency plan, Operation Silence, a mission to erase Earth's influence before it spread any further. His followers were still strong, but fewer each day. The council was dividing, not by war. By thought. By feeling. Far away, on Earth. The news came in slowly. Aliens are dreaming. One headline read, "People on Earth cheered." They celebrated not because they won something, but because someone out there finally understood them. Children sent drawings to the council through data links. One showed an alien holding hands with a human. The message on it said, "Friends don't need to look the same." Back on the council station, Counselor Mira walked past a group of young observers. They were listening to Earth's rain sounds. One asked, "Is this really what it's like?" Mira replied, "Yes, and someday you may stand in the rain yourself." She looked out the window, toward the blue world far away. "Earth gave us more than questions," she said softly. "They gave us the ability to feel the answers, and the council would never be the same again." The changes that had begun within the Galactic Council were spreading fast. The human condition, as some started calling it, was no longer a small mystery affecting a few individuals. It was becoming a wave of movement sweeping through species that had never known feelings like joy, sadness, or hope. The council was divided. Some feared this wave. They believed the emotional shift weakened their logic and order. They wanted to stop it at any cost. Others embraced it. They felt alive in ways they never had before. They found beauty in things they had always ignored. Zorvix, leader of the Fear faction, was furious. He called an emergency session in the High Chamber. "This virus, this emotional contagion must be contained," he said, his voice sharp as steel. "If we lose control, our civilizations will collapse." But Counselor Mira stood calmly. "Zorvix," she replied softly, "this is not a virus. This is evolution." The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, Earth's small but determined crew aboard Hope One continued their work. They shared stories, music, and food. They taught the aliens how to laugh at silly jokes, how to paint sunsets, and how to enjoy simple pleasures. One day, the retired schoolteacher turned diplomat, Alira Morgan, was contacted by a council fleet. "Commander, we have launched a mission to quarantine Earth," the commander said gravely. "Many admirals and captains support it." Alira frowned. "Quarantine. But Earth is peaceful," she replied. The commander sighed. Fear spreads quickly here. Alira, gather the crew. We must prepare, she said, not for war, but for understanding. As the quarantine fleet approached Earth's system, strange things happened. Half of the admirals and captains began to change. They listened to Earth's music secretly. They read human poetry. Some even started sending messages filled with hope and longing. One admiral, known for his strict discipline, sent a message back to the council. I cannot lead this mission. I have seen the light in their songs. I resign. Another captain quietly defected, bringing his ship to Earth's orbit and joining the peaceful crew of Hope 1. The council was in chaos. In the Grand Chamber, Zorvix slammed his fist on the table. This is rebellion. They are infected by humanity's emotions, Counselor Mira replied. They are awakened by humanity's emotions. The council voted to quarantine the infected members, including those admirals and captains who refused to lead the fleet. These members were placed in isolation pods, monitored closely. Half the council was now quarantined. On Earth, the news spread. People cheered. They did not want war. They sent art, music, and kindness through space. Children drew pictures of aliens and humans holding hands. Alira sent a message back to the council. We do not want to fight. We want to be friends. Back in quarantine, many council members reflected. Some wrote poetry for the first time. Others learned to dream. One machine being whispered softly, I have learned to hope. The quarantine was no longer a punishment. It became a place of transformation. Zorvix grew more isolated. He watched the council he knew fading away. He wondered if fear had blinded him to something greater. The story of Earth, once denied by the Galactic Council, had become a force that could not be ignored, and the galaxy was beginning to change. The Galactic Council was at its breaking point. Half of its members were quarantined, their minds touched by the human condition, feelings, dreams, and creativity they never knew before. The other half was fearful, angry, desperate to control or destroy Earth to stop the spread. The chamber buzzed with tension as the final vote approached. The question, destroy Earth or embrace the change it brings? Counselor Zorvix stood at the front, his voice loud and firm. Earth is a danger. It must be silenced before it spreads further. Counselor Mira, calm but determined, answered. Or it could be the key to our evolution. We must choose hope, not fear. The debate lasted days, voices rising and falling like a storm. Meanwhile, on Earth, an unexpected event prepared to change everything. A human child, no more than 10 years old, was part of a cultural exchange program aboard Hope 1. She had a simple but powerful gift, a pure heart and endless curiosity. During the council's vote, the child was invited to speak. The chamber fell silent as she stepped forward. She looked at the vast crowd of alien faces, some cold, some curious. She said simply, I do not understand why you are afraid. On Earth, we learn from each other. We sing together, laugh together, and grow together. When we share, we become stronger. Her words were quiet but carried the weight of truth. The council listened. The child continued, I dream of a galaxy where we are all friends, where we do not fight because we are different, where feelings are not weaknesses but gifts. A soft murmur spread through the chamber. Even Zorvix hesitated. Suddenly, the quarantine council members began to sing. It was unexpected, a melodic harmony rising from the pods. The song was unfamiliar but beautiful, full of hope and connection. The music moved the council. Walls that once divided began to fall. The High Council decided the quarantine would end. The council members affected by the human condition were welcomed back, not as outcasts, but as teachers. Earth was no longer a myth or a threat. It was a symbol of a new beginning. The Galactic Accord was signed, written in Earth's handwriting. It promised peace, unity, and understanding. The galaxy would change not by force, but by connection. Miss Morgan smiled as she watched the new dawn. Earth was never alone, she said. And now, the stars have become our home.